In a world where Africans have lost their roots, it has become of vital importance to document our ways. In an effort to reverse the brainwashing of the past, where we were made to believe our ways are demonic, we are pressed to create dignified and respectful platforms to unpack our spiritual ways. Moya alright, Moya upright, Moya uya riser. Thank you so much for all your patience. Thanks for joining us once more. We are doing this. Thank you to everybody contributing. The reason we have an episode today is because of you guys. So I am, most of us who watch this are most thankful for your generosity and your kindness and your Moya rise. And there is content for subscribers only, so please do enjoy. As you know, Moya is a platform for our spirituality, for our history. We are unpacking what it means to be African, our Africanness. What a blessing today. I am so excited. I know you're not a pastor anymore. You've gone through so many journeys.
You have been there all along. On my backlashes and what,
Exactly.
and you bumping your heads on the road. But nice to see you again. I mean, last time we did an interview was in Sankofa, and
Yes.
what a time, and quite a good response from the people.
Thank you, and I'm happy that I'm on the other side now, and I'm going to get to know you.
You couldn't
this
wait.
time.
You couldn't wait.
I was like, yes, this gentleman unpacked me. Now it's my turn to unpack his journey. So, I want to start right from the beginning because sometimes people watch us, but they don't actually know the journey of who this person is as a human being. So, like where you grew up and how your spirituality was, because as you're a young person, it does get tested. I mean, you do see like weird things. And so how did you, because obviously you're on a spiritual journey, how did you?
Now, actually, this thing of generational gaps makes sense. I can almost say we're old school. We're born in the 60s. I think we're the last generation that actually experienced our grandfathers who were born in the 1900s. My grandfather was born in 1861, 62, thereabouts, who brought me up. And so we were taught by the 1800s.
So we do have this history.
We have this history, and we experienced it. And Christianity had not yet sunk in with the great roots. These are the first people to meet Christianity, so first generation. So their understanding is not fully, hypnotized. They are still wide awake to their cultural stuff. And yet there's this thing that is now coming that is telling them, stop doing this, stop doing this. But in a space you're living in, you still have time to sit around the fireplace and listen to old stories. Grandmama is showing you stars and naming trees in the bush and telling you what to eat and what not to eat and how this must be done, how women must get married and what ceremonies, what is the value of this, why must you sleep on the mat, why are you going to the river to collect some clay and then mixing it with cow dung and putting a child to sleep in that thing there for immunization, and an aunt has given birth, run to the bush there, collect this and this and this, put it in the dish, let it sit and shrinking and what. So we actually, and on Sabbath, we go to church, but in the week we are able to experience life as it were. Even you're planting, put your sweet reeds around the field and say why? So that when insects come, they must enjoy the sweet things and not tamper with the main fruits. And in planting 3 crops in the same space, so that creating all those spaces, and you look around that intelligence, and you experience and you live it. It's almost like a dream. Should I meet Ama 2000 and I start talking like this, and it's like, but why bother plant? You can just get some spray and kill these things and etc. But no, you don't kill them. There's an ecology that you create. So spirituality for me has not been a schizophrenic environment where you are this over the weekend. Oh, let's dress up, let's go for church. Then you soup up nicely. Then after church, remove these jackets, remove the uniforms. Some are
Get a beer.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it's done. Church is done. So life begins. But I think correct definitions of spirituality is whether we're eating, we're drinking, we're sleeping, we're marrying, we're plowing, we're harvesting fruits, we're harvesting herbs, we are walking on the road, we are drinking water. Everything has a spiritual significance to it. You pour water a bit, you drink something like this, you bring me water, you take a sip first, then you give me also to drink. And when you're eating, the adults must stand first, the younger ones must remain. And when there's a big piece of meat, the older brother take the big piece, then he distributes it to the younger guys who get the smaller piece, and so they're sharing and eating in one big plate. And there is so much we grew up under. You just need to get your bottle and then you go heading cattle, because in the bush there you're able to milk some cows and then get some wild fruits, the baobabs, make your own yogurts, and then eat. You come back home for supper with 1 meal a day, and it's not an abuse. I went to school with peanut butter on my hand. Grandma will be grinding, just scoops up a big whipping wooden spoon, splash it on my hand and say, boy, go to school, sprinkle some salt there. You drink water for the rest of the day. It was not an issue. You would head cattle in the morning and yoke them and go plow around 4 in the morning, 7, 8-ish, you're running to school, halfway bathed, and it was natural.
So did then poverty come with westernization and Christianity?
Poverty is an imported word, because in the truest sense, poverty is not the absence of money. Poverty is the absence of land, absence of culture, absence of support structures, absence of family, absence of health, So poverty, the modern generation is poor because they would neither claim to have any of that. They neither have health, they neither have money, they neither have a house, they neither have land. You have nothing. Your pay slip is the one that tells us whether you are out of poverty or not. And the day you lose your job, you're back on ground zero. So this whole modern economic, balloon, this fluff of wealth is equal to money. It's not true. Wealth is relationships. Wealth is land. Wealth is to sleep at night and your door is open and you're not scared that someone will come with a panga and chop you for the money you didn't pay yesterday. Wealth is allowing your children to walk at 8, 9 in the evening and strangers would see them and escort them home. Boys and girls, and nothing wrong would happen. I think an environment and a community that has that, even when you are hungry, you can come into my field, just take some watermelon, eat and go. When it is late at night, you come and knock at my door. Hey, kwawira in Shona. Opano, and immediately you get there, you get a bed to sleep. And when you enter a house, we don't ask for anything. First thing, we greet you with a bowl of water. We know you've been traveling. You surely need water to start with. And when we're eating, we eat together. We break bread together. And that trust, that's another form of wealth. Trust. Living in a space where you can trust and be trusted.
Yes.
Yeah, the wealth of trust. Now we have money, but you can't even trust each other. You can't even give your mother a PIN number. You can't give your brother your PIN number. You may come back home poor. You can't even give you you can't give your wife or your husband your bank card without you having high blood pressure, because next thing you're getting SMSs that are bing, 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 bing. So for me, the wealth of trust that gives you the comfort of life, and I think from our generation, that's what I would look at you as young people and say, oh no.
So poor people.
You have money, but you have no wealth. You have money, but you have nothing. And if someone once wrote and says, if money is the only thing you have, then you're very poor. It's not all.
So, you're talking about all these ways that Africans live. You mentioned so many examples, like drinking water first, and even that thing where when you give or receive, you use both hands. How or where do Africans learn to be African again? Because obviously they've lost their memory.
I think it's an issue of a hard drive, maybe to use a more modern word. It's an issue of a hard drive that has been plugged out of its, where information can be read. I have good news for you. That hard drive is in our DNA. It's right inside us. Unfortunately, lots of other apps have been put onto it, and physically so. Facebook, Instagram, and the real apps, the operating system that drives this machine has almost been overshadowed in the midst of all these apps. And sometimes we crash in depression, sometimes we crash in psychological breakdowns, and all that means is that just go back on your phone. If you have a good phone like mine, it will say reset to factory settings. And it will tell you, when you do that, then your Facebooks will go, your WhatsApps will go, your Instagrams will go. You remain with the operating system in its raw form. Then in that case, then you can begin to download the other apps that you want to function with. I'm using this at a very simple level, but I hope the message is sinking, that we have been absorbed in and we think having a phone is having a Facebook. But if you look at the functions of a phone, you can email, you can type, you can Google, you can read, you can learn, you can what. But if you only think that a phone is based on your artificial apps, which is entertainment, you may actually forfeit your scanning things that are at the bottom there, your pulse readings that are in there. So for me, the DNA of an African has not been lost. I'm sorry to say that. It is still within us. It takes an awakening. It takes silence. It takes switching off. It takes taking off your shoes. It takes walking on the ground, walking to the rivers, sitting in the mountains, waking up early in the mornings, 3s in the mornings, and sit in the midst of silence and give yourself that internal conversation. And when that becomes a habit, all of a sudden your dreams, your visions, your premonitions, your deja vus, your gut feelings start to become much more active. Whereas right now there's too much noise. You even sleep with music in your ears. You have TV, you have music, you have what? I want to call it noise pollution. And that presses down your sense of saying, Facebook is saying, Twitter is saying, news is saying, they're saying, but no one stops to say, what are you saying? What are you saying? You have a problem right now. The first thing is to phone friends. What did this has happened? This has happened, and everyone is telling you what you should be doing, but you don't stop to say, but what do you want? What do you want to do? And that can only come from an internal conversation, which will lead into outward demonstration and manifestations. And many of us have lost touch with us. And when you come to us, we are back to Sanibonani, because you're no longer singular.
Yeah.
You are plural.
Yeah.
We're greeting you with everything that is already embedded in you. And if you can stop, of course, on any day, if someone should ask you a question, and then ask yourself the question, what do I think? That's an artificial question. The real question should be, what do we think?
Why do we say Sanibonani? Why are we a plural?
Because you're not alone. You have 4 that make 1. You have 4 that make 1. These 4 grandparents make the 2 parents. It's mom and dad. These 2 families come together. There's your first diamond. And there is your exit into life. This becomes the first symbol of African spirituality. Just reading your hands and knowing what is on your left. Your grandparents who give birth to your mother. Your grandparents who give birth. So you don't have 1 totem. You actually have 8 that come together to form you. So when you say, what do we think? You're going back into yourself and say, what sort of background am I coming from? What are the values that are esteemed in these 4 families? And if I should know, hence maybe many young people don't hear us, because I think we're getting older also. When we say, know yourself, it sounds so nice. Learn your history. A man who does not know where he's coming from, does not know where he is, does not know where he's going. These have become popular comments. But when you unpack that, we're saying the more you understand about what makes you, the easier it is to understand who you are. Because your anger, your love, your passion, your fears, your talents, your gifts, your beauty, your wiring, the entire software that makes the hardware and puts it together is coming from these 8 branches which have poured into 2. 2 have poured into 1. So 1 is not singular. 1 is plural. So Sanibonani, me stretching out my hand and touching yours, I'm giving you the first 4 on my right hand side, and I'm saying, let's unite, let's join together. So marriage becomes deeper in that level, that you're now putting these things together, putting this history together, putting this software together, creating a new space of life which already has a tried and tested history. So to know yourself, therefore, is to say, go and learn your grandfather's graves. Go and learn your grandmother's graves. Because when you know what made them happy, you will know what makes you happy. When you know how beautiful they are and they were, you will know how beautiful they are. You will even find your looks engraved on. And when you know what killed them, you may know what will kill you also. Because if you don't know what killed your forefathers, most likely the same thing will kill you also. So you will begin to learn the traits, the habits, the cheekiness, the anger, they all find no auntie. Those things are not said in passing. It's actually a fact that in some certain cases, before you were born, actually maybe auntie said, hey, kuzobuya umntwana la. Igama lakhe kuzothiwa ngubani. Sifuna uvusa ubani bani. Things like that. And in some of our ancient stories where you would actually find that the birth of a child is a rebirth of Africans. We even give you the name of one who was there. The question is, who is that person who was there? And when you know who they were, maybe you don't need to study more about yourself than to understand them. And when you understand exactly what kind of a person they were, you may actually begin to understand the kind of person you are. I don't like this, I don't like this, I don't like this. And you think that you don't like these things, but honestly, you don't like this, and other people like it. What makes you think that? So children are born, some are born scared of snakes. So where did you learn to be scared of snakes? So there's trauma that is also planted in our bodies. There's appetites planted. If a child, a girl who is on drugs, sense of drug addiction, in terms of research, they are children. So are we only saying that bad elements are the only ones that are immuted and transported to children? You can't look at the whole space and say it's an entire download of the software.
And it doesn't say good or bad, it just downloads.
So back to Sanibonani.
Yes.
Then it means that it's a plural greeting. And in Shona, by the way, when we wake up in the morning, we don't say Sanibonani. We say Mangwanani. Mangwanani. Mangwa. Words. Anani. Who has the words? So when we go to sleep, we believe that all of us, we're going to have conversations in the spiritual realm. Then in the morning when we wake up, we say Mangwa Anani. Who has the words from the world of the spirit? Then we compare our dreams, we compare our visions, what we saw in the night. Then we map up our day, we map up our month. It is in those dreams that we can tell a child will be born. We can tell a drought is coming. We can tell that winter is almost here. We can tell there's a problem in the families. The weird spirit is playing around.
How does that even work, The whole thing with the dreams and...
School has lied to us to tell us that we have five senses. Unfortunately, that's an interpretation of the late 1800s in the scientific classes where they're trying to become scientists and they're plagiarizing from Kemet. And they don't even understand the Ankh itself in terms of what it represents, the dynamics of life and the incarnation of knowledge and wisdom embedded in there. So they take human beings and start cutting them up and say, oh, they can feel, they have a sense of feeling, can see, a sense of sight. And you write 5, say those are the only senses. But what happened to gut? What happened to déjà vu? What happened to premonition? What happened to instincts? What happened to dreams? What happened to visions?
The sixth sense.
Not even 6 men, they go way beyond that. And some people can even travel. There's spiritual travel.
Yes, astral traveling.
Extra travel. There even American intelligence, they're using it for their intelligence. The psychics, you bring me a piece of cloth of someone who has committed a crime and the person can actually tell you, where's this person? And who is this person? It's a woman, it's a man. They are next to the water. What do you call that? What do you call that? I mean, this is altruism? This autism. These sick kids who seem to be
autistic.
Autistic. And then you look at what they can create and write. Those guys are not
gifted children.
Those are not five senses. Someone can look at a building in a glance and go back and draw it with detail to the T, which will mess you up. So, I think maybe education has made us stupid, totally stupid. I mean, even we're not so intelligent, but I could see a hoof of a cow on the ground. I can still do, and I can tell whether this was done. If it walked here today, if it was yesterday. If this cow is injured, because you can see from the dragging of the feet. And by looking at the cow dung, I can see if this one has got a stomach problem, this one is sick, and etc. And you examine things. And it comes naturally in terms of your environment in which you are brought in. So spirituality for me begins to become a daily expression of life. living in the abundance of knowledge. A simple definition would be spirituality is when a human being is able to plug into their natural environment and live in harmony with what is around them. And of course, respecting the air, respecting the water, and respecting the soil, and allowing those elements to fuse with this body so that the water in the cup and the water in the river are united. So therefore, you are a human being. When we scoop the water out, it's you. But when we pour you back into the river, that's death and life, explained in a very simple illustration. So you can't fear going back in the river where you came from. That is basically putting you back into the great flow of life. So spirituality is just understanding that your scoop out of the river to become you does not separate you from the rest of what is happening out there. And ultimately you come back here again. And for me, this integral knowledge of knowing that we are not separate. Hence I always complain, and when I talk about development and civilization, that if we should turn the whole of South Africa into Johannesburg or into Manhattan, okay, that's development. We have streetlights, we have concrete jungles. Let's go back to Thames in Britain. You can't even give a dog that water, it will die. So when we make ourselves into this developed, industrialized environment, what quality of life are we going to live? What quality of water are we going to drink? What quality of food are we going to eat? What quality of relationships are we going to have? And then you may discover that we may end up in a concrete jungle. But the quality of life is actually deteriorating with every development that is coming. The value of life itself is becoming less than it is. So I'm not so fancy about development. I'm actually grown up now. Yes, I love the soft things in life. But I've decided maybe it's beautiful to secure my grandfather's farm and recreate a cultural hub where it's a royal school that I'm building now, where the kings around the world would bring their children, those that are training who have lost their sense of royalty, send their kids to Britain, to Massachusetts, to Cape Town University. They come back, these boys with bow ties, cross-legged, in the conference of elders, and yes, I'm the king. And cars and flash, and we look at Swaziland, for example. I don't blame, I'm not here to blame the king, but you would not understand the pollution of a colonial system on a traditional monarch. And at the end of the day, when the king does what he learned his life in the UK, and he implements it in Swaziland, then the whole thing becomes a mess. And not only him, many of our kings actually, they are kings in trophies, but in practice, they don't even know where their ancient fathers' caves were, where the fathers would go and seclude themselves and reconnect. Then the seasons would come in Gwala and etc. There's a season for plowing. There's a season when a king must announce when the rains are coming. And when there are no rains, there are ceremonies that must be done. When there's a war that is coming, there are things that must be done. If there's an epidemic, if there's a problem. So though the king is not even aware of who he is and what he represents, a mediator between heaven and earth, he is our God. He's almost a pharaoh to us. Yeah. He is a Ra to us, the one who connects us to the other side. And these kings are not even, hence the presidential elections and royal elections are totally different. You elect a president into power who is not even connected to the land. The land does not know him. The air does not know him. The water does not know him. You're even lucky if the people know you. But whereas on the other end, the whole inauguration around the king has to do with you sitting together, the crown on your head, the feathers around you, the mats around you. You're supposed to protect the ants, the birds, the wild animals, the cattle, the people.
So it's based on nature.
It's all, and you are the custodian. You're the custodian, and we introduce you to these elements so that when we are in trouble, you can go back to these elements and talk to them. So you're having a president, it's a trophy. The real issue is when the sender no longer holds Chinua Achebe, when the culture has lost its royalty, then that culture no longer, it will be blown away by the winds of the dominant cultures.
Earlier on, there were two things I wanted to come back to. The schizophrenia of Christianity and then the meaning of the Ankh, because we don't all know the Ankh. We just see the shape and it might not resonate. So you were talking about the power behind it.
Yeah, the schizophrenic Christianity is what exactly I was explaining, that you have a dichotomy in life where spirituality and physical function are separated. They're not in harmony. You actually must move out from one to the other, then put the other aside and then move back again. So then you end up bouncing between, so you must have two brains. The elder you see in church in the morning, they're talking, is not an elder you find in the house in the evening, talking to his wife and children in the community. And the pastor you see standing in front and preaching, and immediately after the service, if you should say, let's follow him, he's not the same man that you find outside of that. So even the people who are propagating their religion themselves have not been able to put their heads around that.
Is that perhaps why you moved away from Christianity? Because you were originally a pastor, were you not?
Yes. The moving away from Christianity, I want to put it in context for the sake of the younger viewers. You go to primary, you go to high school, you go to college, you go to university. But the knowledge that you learned at primary, the knowledge you learned in high school, and then does not run away from you, because you're at another space of learning. And again, it comes with this Eurocentric, what I might call a Hellenistic knowledge system. You can be this or that. You're a teacher? Are you a teacher or NS? Are you this or that? Are you this or that? But in spirituality, you can be this and that and that and that. So it's Ntsiki, Mazwai here, who is a sister, who is a TV presenter, who is a socialite, who is a cousin, who is an aunt, who is a neighbor, who is a what. So how many are you?
There are many of us here.
But there's no conflict in you. Just remember, you don't become this to this and not become this to this. So you put boundaries to those relationships and the dynamics of yourself. So unless we begin to understand that life is matrix by nature, it is not a monochrome.
A human being is a universe.
It's not a one flat screen black and white. It's a colorful picture that you can see. And when we begin to appreciate life in its plurality of integration with these complexities of relationships, we may actually find that Christianity begins to bring back again the black and white, whereas spirituality we see in color, as it were. One is in a vase, the other one is in the ocean. Which fish grows better? They can sense their limitation when they are in those koi fish. They actually say the bigger the pool, the bigger the koi, the smaller the pool, the smaller the koi. Why? Because the gravity that tells them boundaries don't allow them to grow beyond the structure in which they have been dumped in. So you can take a big plant, gum tree, and put it in a small pot. It will not grow beyond the limitation of its roots. But the day you break that vase and put that same tree on the ground, then you will see leaves this big, it beginning to go wild as it is experiencing stuff. So I think Christianity is bottled, pot-planted way of life until this is where Christianity and spirituality will meet. One day, I hope. Until Christianity can begin to drink local water. I'm speaking at a high level.
Because I find that, am I disturbing you? Were you saying something?
Drink local water. Eat local food. Dress locally. Think locally. Take off its shoes. And walk. The day Christianity will understand people playing their drums and doing their beadworks. People celebrating the day it understands that, it could just begin to become indigenous.
Because what I find is that the modern African wants to distance themselves from Africanness, and they use Christianity to be like a better, more sophisticated.
It's a trap, because to distance yourself from yourself, you are actually accepting another culture away from your culture, and what you practice, you think you're practicing Christianity, when in true essence, you're actually practicing Western culture. So what you practice in churches is not Christianity, it's Western culture. That's why you sing the songs. That's why you get married in that fashion. That's why you dress up like that. That's why you behave like that. It is what the missionary, had Africans been missionaries, the whole of Europe will have been putting on a mapesh. So we need to understand that the packaging of the loaf of bread comes with the one who packages it. And many of us Africans have swallowed the plastic and the bread, instead of maybe removing the plastic, which is the packaging, and then find out what is the real core of this thing. Do unto others as you want others do unto you. We already have that in our own culture, and don't plow your fields for 7 years. On the 7th year, let it alone. We already know how to do that as Africans, celebrate your new moons, and etc. We already have that in Africans. That's the book of Isaiah. So when you take away someone's land, bring it back after 50 years, we already know that no one sells his inherited land. You hand it over to your children. So when you read the Bible from that perspective, and when someone has died, let the elders of the community come together and wash their hands over a dead cow there, and I, the Lord, will go. Already know how to do rituals. When someone is already, and the Bible is in the book of Numbers. When you come to my temple, please bring me also a canister of red fermented wine and put it next to the altar. And the Africans also taking some kumbuti, and it's going to be so you. And unfortunately, when you begin to grow up and you can put things into context. When I was a young preacher, it was just the book was too close to my eyes. Yeah. But now when I begin to move it a bit further from my hands, and I can now see what is there, and I say, you're burning incense here in the Bible. You're burning incense here in the village. So what's the difference? You're drinking the blood of Jesus this side. You're drinking the blood of chickens this side. Who is a witch here? We're all witches. At the end of the day, you are baptizing here. They're baptizing also. So you begin to look at the whole thing and say, guys, hold on a second. And unfortunately, Christianity is so emotional. And once you talk, there's some certain anger that I don't know where they get it from. Because I thought education taught us to discuss things away from. When we're discussing Christianity, we're not discussing you.
Yeah.
So tell somewhere. Just relax. It's an idea. Let us discuss it in its outsideness. Sorry for the poor English. And be objective when we are addressing issues so that you don't become emotional. And if you say, there's Christianity, that the fundamentals of Christianity is human sacrifice, that a man by the name of Jesus dies, and then you are saved, a human sacrifice. So is that biblical? Because the same Bible says any man must not kill his son. And the same Bible then you come a few days later, then Jesus has died for you. Because whoever does this is an abomination to the Lord. And then God does the same. So you go back into tradition and find out this issue of sacrificing human beings. Is it coming from a Christian perspective? Or it is actually an ancient, pagan, Babylonian, Assyrian, Marduk, Jezebel, all that. So that every king who came in, when he did evil, he sacrificed his children. And you come around, and God hated that throughout the Old Testament. But New Testament, voila, there we have him killing his own son. And then through him, we all can be saved. So it kind of puts gravel in my mouth. It's a reasoning level. And if we say it's based on human sacrifice, then this is a cult. To use your very same academic knowledge, then this is a cult. And every week, then we go and drink his blood and eat his flesh. And then we say we are Christians. And on the other side, they burn their incense and they drink their mkumput.
Because what's the difference between impepo and frankincense burning in church?
Spelling. The difference is your spelling. This one is even organic. This one is synthetic. So that's my 2 cents worth on the Christian space. But I grew up and I went to school. I studied theology. I did everything, and I had an aha moment when I met up with Mkhulu Credo, and I was writing the book Going Places in the Spirit, which took me around the country doing my own research as a scholar.
Beautiful.
A scholar. And I'm coming from a space where we used to speak at people. So you get up on the pulpit and say, oh, people do this and do that and do that and do that. And you're always you're condemning everybody else because you want to put these ones next to yourself. But I think when I crossed my 40s and I started to look back, my marriage had broken down by then. I was growing my 2 girls, 4 years and 6 years. And chips had fallen. I'd lost my job. I'd lost stuff. And I think it was my path then started.
Yes.
Because I was on this highway. I joined the ministry at 15, 16. And by 25 or so, I'd been around the world, traveled the world, and I was
You were
running.
privileged.
I was third generation Christian. I was on the highway, and I ran so fast, I missed some steps. And then life just brought me back, and I had to really think through. And I sat down, and so when I was writing, I wrote "So You Want to Be the Master," "Women in the Kitchen," as I was cooking for my kids, shopping skills, lessons I want to share with my girls, and
Women are in the kitchen.
women in the kitchen.
Yes. What inspired that? What's that about?
I was standing in the kitchen, and I
Yeah.
asked myself the question: if my wife had understood what was in the kitchen, this marriage could still be here.
Or you're gonna blame her?
Now, at that moment, it was a blame game. But
Yes.
I contributed. I
Yes.
destroyed that thing. I was busy with God, and I thought that Jesus will look after my family. But it only comes back in the reflection. So I don't blame her. Actually, she did what every woman could do,
Yeah.
and I had no time to listen to a human being when I'm actually working for the boss who is giving you breath. That arrogance of ministry where you just get consumed. And of course, I was brainwashed.
Yes.
Intensely so. And I would been to the best academic schools and theology, and you memorize, you do everything, and you come back there, you're a jihadist, to say the least. You would kill for what you believe now. And so, but when I started going places in the spirit, so Women in the Kitchen was using the thinking tools in the kitchen, basically, just one of them. And when I was taking rubbish out the other day, an idea just hit me. I said, "Why are you taking the rubbish out?" Because the kitchen will smell. Then I said, "But if in life, then why are you still angry with me 6 months later? And you're still cooking food from this kitchen? So why are you taking out the rubbish out? Why not also remember to take out stuff out from your emotional side?" And so it's a conversation around cooking, around cleaning, around storages. Yes. So I just sat in the kitchen there, and I wrote a book while in the kitchen, the dangers in the kitchen, how to burn food in the kitchen, and how to store things in the kitchen. And beautiful piece of work. So actually, when I take a lot in Amazon, you can go and find that book. I republished it as Contested Ground through women. But initially, it's Women in the Kitchen. If you learn how to cook in the kitchen, you should take the tools of the kitchen as a woman and go to the boardroom. You will do a better job and take from the boardroom to the bedroom. So all of it for me, I started looking at the world through a feminine window that learn skills which the world thinks are menial tasks. But if you go back to the kitchen, actually the kitchen is the center of the family. And women who have stood here and understood what is around them, you can go and cook anything from a boardroom to a bedroom. And of course, finally, when you are cooking, when you are cooking for then it also becomes like a marriage.
Yes.
Very, very. So back to Babu Credo. Then I went around the country doing a research. I'd heard about witchcraft. I'd heard about traditional things and what and what. I was qualified now as a theologian, and I didn't understand this culture that we are always fighting in churches. Sintu. So don't do this sintu. Look at that and say, what is so evil about this sintu? And then, but you always hear that you're muntu, but you can't do sintu. Then how can you be sintu without ubuntu? And by then, about 2008, 2009, there was small little glimpses of ubuntu. Ubuntu was then becoming popular into we need an Ubuntu culture. And I also I'm going to find out, apply my mind to these things. And I said, I want to write a book. I'm going places in the spirit, which is a transition. It's Christianity all about physical things, giving tithe and offerings and coming to church. And it ends there. And these pastors always says, God says, God said. So it looks like these guys are living in another realm and members at another realm. What is happening in this other space? So I went down to the Drakensberg, met up with the traditional healers there. I only had one question in that book. How do you live a spiritual life? And I started. I was free by then. And all the time to my hands. So I started traveling. Went to Drakensberg, went to Swaziland, Mpumalanga, went to North Limpopo, went and back to Joburg, Zim, did some stuff. And I started developing this interest in cultural sites, sacred sites. And I would start walk, and boom, one morning I'm sleeping in my house and something just said, Northwest. I jumped in my car at 2:30 in the night. I drove, it was a full moon, I remember. All the way to Kuruman, straight, boom, got the Department of Arts and Culture. I'm looking for something. He is in this town. And the guy was happy, he knew me from some other spare TV and other things. And I'll take you there. And we went and sat with Mkhulu and he offloaded. And he was tired by then.
Yeah.
I think it was 2014, 15. He was tired. And many other scholars had come and plagiarized and stolen his stuff. And so he was actually immediately walking in. Someone wants to see you. It was almost like, oh, not again.
Another one coming to take from me.
Not again, not again. So I sat there and we picked up some books, started to read and I discovered, this is not it. I'm not doing it right. Let's stop. Spoke to Gogo, let's go and buy some food. Let's relax, let's have a good day together. So we just bought some food and we started sharing meals. And then he opened up and started sharing real stuff. And for me, it's not about, don't come to me to learn anything from me. You know everything already. And then don't learn my words. Learn my ways and my words will come to you. That's what I walked away with. That it's not about recitation of quotations that you can call knowledge. Knowledge is knowing how to access it and knowing where to find information. Maybe it's the biggest thing that I learned from Tadimu.
And speaking of that, how do people find information? Because when I look at the modern black child, and the black child is a grown woman and a grown man, you know? And
presidents and ministers.
You know what I'm saying? But they don't know they're only accessing the knowledge that has been given to them, that they're consuming. So how do you, like earlier on you're talking about the apps and unplugging.
No, maybe for now we can plug into we can move over maybe into the Ankh itself. Maybe just how do you access information?
Yes.
You just to understand the very dynamics of what life is made out of. What factors contribute to what you call life. So the Ankh is a cosmological symbol that is oval, feminine on the top side, and masculine on the bottom side, and then dimensional to reach out to the left and to the right. So in your mind, you can picture something like this, oval with the line that cuts across, and then a masculine at the bottom.
Yes.
So in the very simplistic form, it is actually that the woman is the window and the door of the spirit through which we cross the line to come into the physical space. Then it explains that men are physical and women are spiritual. Now that for me goes places. So any woman who tries to be physical, you've actually shortchanged yourself. Because women are not physical, women are spiritual. That's why even your periods are not on the calendar, but they're on the moon. So when a young child is born, we take them, particularly girls, after 3 months indoors. The first thing they must see when they come out is on a full moon. And then the mothers and grandmothers will take the child, the baby girl child, and show them the moon. There is your mother. So that her timing of the cosmology inside her can link with the moon that is above her. And going forward, she's in sync with the mother, who is cosmical. So if a man wants to see himself, he can't see himself on the physical. He has to access the spiritual, the cosmos above. And that's where women are. And then only from there can you download yourself into the physical realm. So for me, an Ankh is quite a sacred symbol that actually explains life to the African. Therefore, women in that case have never been less than. That has been taught to us. Mudzi, Mai, Shona, Mudzi, Ndimai, Mudzi, Mu. Mudzi is roots. Mai is mama, mother. Mudzi, Mai, the root is the mother. Mudzimu, the ancestor, is the mother. The ancestors are found in your roots, and the roots are the mother. So it's the mother that connects you to everything. So the grand feminine space of women, even giving the woman the lower chair to sit on, is not derogative, because the lower the chair, the closer to the ground and what she carries is the one that belongs to the chair. So the man only sits to protect what is next to him. So there's no power in an exalted chair. Power is in the lower one, because what is inside her is coming to sit on this chair. So she can't sit here, because who will bring it here? So it's the whole thing of prostrating and going down. So when a woman comes to you, I put this illustration in Women in the Kitchen, by the way, this illustration. When a woman comes to you and she brings you a dish of water and you are standing, I'm using my culture, by the way, she's Shona, Karanga. And she brings you a dish of water and you are standing and she puts it in your hands. You cannot wash at the same level where the dish is.
Yeah.
There is something that must happen for you to wash your hands. The dish has to go a bit lower. And so when the dish goes lower, then the man must sit down. And the dish, and of course when the woman lies down, another story happens. And washing of hands can happen. But when a woman stands, the woman stands. When the woman sits on the chair, the man is on top of the roof. And it goes the opposite direction. So humility, therefore, when a woman comes to you and kneels to give you water, she's saying, come down. Women are the balancing factor of the community. They reduce this obsession with heights and make men to sit down. I cannot be kneeling to give you water and you're standing. You have to sit down and come down where I am. So you begin to find this. It's not about slave trade. It's actually women talking to the strength and reducing it to service and allowing a conversation of relationship to happen. We are serving each other and we are cooperating with each other without saying much. When that act is done, there is a lot of downloads and uploads that are happening. Who is stronger? The one who does something and instructs you to do without saying a word, or the one who speaks to you and then you respond? Who is strong? She does something and she causes you to. What is strong, the causer or the caused?
So what about what's happening now? Because there seems to be a conflict between the male and the female energy, especially in our country at the moment.
Yeah, that's a bit. Hence, I'm saying maybe I'm happier to be addressing this from the old school, so that maybe the younger generation, you can take this information and experiment with it and see what it does. And I'm not being. And let me put a disclaimer clause. I don't support GBV in any way. I don't support women being abused in any fashion, in any way. Put that on record.
Yes.
I might say statements sometimes in my own philosophical world, which I would understand to mean this. But when media sometimes don't have time to re-explain exactly what you're saying. But I could say this in that sense, that I've never seen a woman being abused or beaten down when she's on her knees. It is when fingers are flying in the air and we're standing in the same space that it happens. So maybe women, instead of using strength to fight masculinity, how about using femininity, the very energy that will remind a man of his mother, of his grandmother, of his sisters, and which drains the anger that is already bottled in him. How do you deal with that? Because if you come to me with the same anger and you become a man like a fellow man, then you're calling me to war. So how about using the big doors hang on small hinges? All men come from women. All men have breastfed, and all men have lied innocently in some woman's hands. Come on, someone. And there's no way. More men have lost their teeth when they said anything about my mother. Try it. Just mention, say, Munyoko. And I don't know where it is in men, but there are things that that begin to run through you. That what my mother in West, if you mention here, is a private part. It's another story. But then it shows you that actually there's a link between this raw, wild, masculine energy that is not tamed by coming to it with the same force that it already has. But what tames it, it's the softer side of life, which reminds them of who they are and where they are coming from. And I think for the younger women, that's the secret right there. That be a woman. Don't try to be a man, just be a woman. And if you're supposed to use the biblical text in a selected fashion, not on the head that you should rule over him, not underneath his feet that he should walk over you, but from his side that you should keep each other warm. There's a relationship right there. So, and for me, it is the education and the modern training, this whole equality, and which comes with it, beautiful as it might seem to be. But then you would want to take an interview for the 40, 50-year-old women who have been independent and etc. and sit with them privately, and they can begin to empty their hearts with their bags full of sex toys, and then you look at them and say, what is it that you missed in life? You'll hear them say, I don't want the money, I don't want the house, and then I just want to be in a space where I could belong, because intrinsically it is built in a woman to nature. There is more. I understand you, by the way. I've interviewed you once or twice. You have your own opinions on those issues, but there's an in-depth build, something, I don't know where it is, that even now, if we should run on the streets and we see a child, even if you don't have any, there's some intuition that, oh, Shem, come on, can you do something for this child? You see, there is that thing that, whereas I can say, come on, hey, the parents will see what they go, no, please stop. Because it's intrinsically built in that. And when you push that down, the older you get, then you may find that life begins to remind you that, hey, Mjana, are you not forgetting something here? Are you not? Hence, then the last interview, when I tortured you with my last question, I said, Ntsiki, I quoted William Shakespeare, if you remember. And I said, Malvolio speaking to Viola in the book Her 12th Night, he says to her, Viola, with all this beauty, should you die and leave the world no copy, you'll be the cruelest she alive.
You know what the issue is? Men have run away from the home. So I don't want to be a single mom.
I understand.
So it's not even about women not wanting to be women. It's because our men are not there. The men haven't shown up.
And again, men have not shown up because the women give their boy child plastic milk in a bottle, and then they breastfeed their husbands in the night, and then they call the child Papa, and they call the husband Baby. You may need to unpack that.
Yes, unpack it.
So children are actually growing on plastic milk. They don't have... But grown-up bearded men like myself were the ones who are breastfeeding in the night. And there's whole media friends right now, suck the breasts. And people, and whole grown-up men. If he wants to breastfeed, send him back to his mother. Why not my son will breastfeed here. You can go and breastfeed also where you're coming from, but I'm of course in a sarcastic way. But I'm saying that the very men you're talking about, the husbands that you're looking for, they are being manufactured every day. And the spaces in which they are growing up, are they growing up to love, to respect, to cherish, to plug in and have the purest form of understanding of what life and relationships are all about? Or they're already growing up in their private room with a remote control that can hear if they are crying or not, and with an electric chair that is rocking them to sleep every day, etc. And these kids begin to crouch inside themselves slowly. Mothers are not there. They've gone to work for 8 hours. They come back in the night. I had another one send their child to a creche, and hardly they have new schools now. You can go and dump your kid 3 months, 4 months. You can go and dump your child away and go to work. And then what are you doing? I'm working for my child. And the child grows up at 16 and says, Mom, I have nothing to do with you. What did I do wrong? I gave you everything. I sent you to the best schools. I bought you labels. What? And the child looks at you blank. If you are lucky, if they walk away. We've had parents being slapped on their faces with their own children and say, Mom, I don't know you. And you wonder, what? Women and husbands have ended up in psychiatric wards, totally flabbergasted, not knowing where did they miss it. But honestly, don't you know where you missed it? Don't you know where you missed it? That I cried. I wanted you to talk to me. You were not there. Now you want to talk. I'm not there. It's a societal ill that we're looking at. By going forward, maybe hence we're back to the jungle again. By the time we have so many concrete buildings around us, by the time we have so much technology and so much of information and machinery around us, what quality of life are we going to have? Maybe we're back to the jungle. So I wrote a paper entitled The Seventh Industrial Revolution and the Eighth. So right now we are struggling with the fourth and the fifth. And if you want to measure civilization, just look at the camera. 1D, 2D, 3D, 4D, 5D, 6D, 7D is the perfection. We're back at the zenith, where it's all glass and all the new cities that are being built in Dubai. The ships, 5 kilometer square ship, with self-contained, everything is in the electronic, gone. Then you look back and see Babylon collapse, the Egyptian pharaohs collapse, the Colosseums collapse, civilizations grow, and then they collapse. Why? Because when they detach from nature, then they collapse. And back to number 8, where the Khoisan, the Bushmen, the Aborigines are. Men living in harmony with nature is the highest of all civilization, where you make nothing, you own nothing, but we have everything.
Before I let you go, I want to go back to the men issue. Because I'm finding that men are having issues even when we say men are the providers, or, especially this generation, they feel very aggrieved and they feel a lot of pressure from having to be the provider. So then what does that mean? Because if we have to be on our knees serving the water, then the counterpart must also do.
Yeah. Now, right there, we're back to the roles where if a man says, I love you, to ask why is a stupid question. The question must be where. Where do you love me? Because love needs a physical address. You can't love me on an app. You can't love me on a tree. We need to have an address. Corner what and corner what. So if he says, I love you, say where. If you're really serious that you want to start something with him, get pregnant on his father's land, and then your child will have an inheritance. Now, having said that, I'll say the next level, where men are under pressure, and stop pressurizing them, because they neither have estate, they neither have posterity, they neither have inheritance. Only thing they have between them is a job, and there's pressure. They can't even cope with that job. And some people are doing jobs that they don't like, even worse. Some people are doing jobs when they're not getting paid enough, even worse. They're in debt. They're in what? So the whole thing of men being providers must be spoken in context. That I provide you with what? Which I will have found where? And if you think that provision is only money, then again we're back to poverty. Provision has to do with estate. Every woman who marries a man, you'll be sad for a very long time. Marry the land, marry the estate, and then you'll be happier.
Yeah, because they call us gold diggers, but I'm like, I'm sorry, I'm not.
Where
are you taking me?
Let's reframe it. Let's rewrite new words. Let's call it land diggers.
Yeah, I'm definitely a land digger. I will own up to that.
If you should, because I know we're coming from a Christian background, so I can share this freely. There is God. He creates Eden. After Eden, he creates Adam. After Adam, he creates Eve. No, for what it is worth, for illustration. Then it is illegal to have an Eve if you don't have an Eden.
Yeah.
So Eden comes first, which is the first wife. And then you always hear me say a man must have 2 wives. Then the first wife is land. Then the second one is the one who gives you children.
Yes.
And if you are a woman and you find a husband who does not have an Eden.
I don't want that.
You find a man who has no estate. All he has is him. Then there's a problem. And you as a man also, don't rush to marry Eves. Don't rush to make Eve pregnant. If Eden is not pregnant, so you make Eden pregnant. And I love, that's why I love culture again. And I almost get a deja vu where if a man, but we don't have money. It has never been about money. A boy who wanted to get married in the ancient times would find a beautiful girl and then come up to the fathers and say, Madam, would you marry me? The girl says, yes, I'll marry you. My father would need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But he says, I don't have. He says, please proceed. Go and talk to the owner of the house. Comes to the family. I want to marry your daughter. What do you have? It's an insurance policy. Transferring of wealth. On another day, I want us to come and talk about Lobola, by the way.
I'd love to, yes.
Because I want to unpack this whole mystery of buying and selling women and once and for all, and we kill it. But if we start now, we need another 2 hours.
Exactly. And I was thinking that when you went into marriage earlier on, I was like, this is the episode I want.
Let's block it.
Fine. So you're going to come back again.
I'll come back for
Thank
that.
you.
Then you would, then the father would say, no, Mchana, okay, you want to marry my daughter? That's fine. There is a piece of land. You give you a virgin land. One is estate. The trees and everything are there. It says work. So you have 1 year. You must clear that bush. Pull out all the trees. You give his cattle. You plow on that field. You will harvest in that field. And the cattle and the calves that are born in that year, the father would give you. You have all your harvest, you put into the barn of your father. And half he will give it to you. And then he will give his daughter over to you. And you can start a life with her. So it was never about money. It was about prove that you're a man. Put your hands where your mouth is and work with me. In many cases, some of those boys actually ended up staying at their in-laws' house, and then they grow the estate together with the father. And so don't lie and say, don't have money. And because of Christianity, the prostitution that is happening in towns is unbelievable. Because people are trying to raise money so that they can go and get married. And you think your children are in Joburg working. Fat and sit. They're sitting. You think your children are at college. They are husbands and wives. They're cooking for each other and washing for each other. Because they cannot do the right thing, because the right thing has been over-commercialized. And people think that because I don't have money, I don't have this, then I can't. Just do the right thing. And if you should access the wombs of the women without the conversations with the ancestors, in whose womb is a corridor of ancestral conversation, you may just find that you have entered a space where issues will haunt you for the rest of your life. Because not all these temples can be ministered without permission. I hope
it's perfect. So you're going to have to come back and have this conversation.
Let's do.
Thank you so much, Dr. Maponga.
Fantastic. But I didn't comment. You're looking stunning.
Thank you very much. I'm aging gracefully.
Yes.
Diabulela.
Is this aging?
This is aging. I'm in my 40s now.
Black don't crack.
Moya writes, it's been such a pleasure hanging out. Please remember to like. Please subscribe, guys, and subscribe for the one that's expensive so that we can actually get this thing going. Moya alright. Moya is rising. Moya upright. Thank you so much for joining us today, and we'll see you again next time. Kamaku.
Who are you when all you were has been diluted by lies and white lines cancelling out all that which has been written of your history? Why do you look at yourself as a mystery? Doesn't the sun shine because you open your eyes? Doesn't the moon stay situated within the same stars your DNA sparkles off? Your spirit knows that surely corner into it off. Buza umoya so you may return to being well off. Because spiritually you are rich, yet your ancestors cry because you are out of reach. But yours is to command all elements while God takes inspiration from the very mirror she looked at to become. Remember who you are and never finish just when they think that with you they are done.